What's the adult version of finding out Santa isn't real? Story 1. Realizing that adults aren't as smart as you thought they were, and most of them are just children in an adult body. My mom once didn't talk to me for 2 weeks because I proved her wrong that they take oxygen tanks up Everest. When I was about 12 years old, my dad bet me $5,000 that Peyton Manning had won the Heisman Trophy. I was a huge sports nerd and knew 100% that he lost to Charles Woodson. My dad obviously knew I didn't have $5,000 to lose, but he was so positive that he shook my hand on the bet. Then we went on a family vacation and my dad would just constantly say that I was paying for it. I and other family members were visiting my maternal grandparents. My cousin, mom's sister's son, read from the fun facts column in the local paper. Remember those? It says here it's almost impossible to duck underwater in the Dead Sea because it's so salty. His father, my uncle, aggressively disagreed, saying he knew for sure that couldn't be true, that it was BS, and to stop talking nonsense. When my cousin tried to show him the paper, he pointed at it. See? It says fun facts. It's not really facts. Why he thought fun meant not, I have no idea. I tried to gently explain that salt water is denser than fresh water, even offering to demonstrate it in the kitchen. Now, I was the youngest in the room at 10 years old, so you can imagine how that went over. He cussed me out and stormed off. Not long after, my aunt divorced his sorry ass. Not all adults are stupid, but he sure was. We think that when we grow up, the child inside of us dies and the adult emerges. But I found that's not true. Our inner child remains very much alive, and we construct an elaborate cover around it we call an adult. And in the right conditions, for better or worse, that inner child of ours can break through the mask and re-emerge. I'm 22. I don't think I'll ever let go of my inner child because that's where my hopes and dreams lay. In fact, I don't even know if I believe in an inner child in principle. It seems like that term only came from people who lost themselves as they get older and are jealous of others who still hold on to it. I'm 36 years old. I spent most of the day watching Doctor Who with my 4-year-old cousin, and at least once he tricked me into getting down on the floor to help with a coloring book page. His grandma gave us matching bucket hats for our summer adventures. Technically, I was super responsible last night, got most of the housework done after I put the kid to bed. But frankly, I only stayed focused on cleaning for that long because I got caught up in the end of an anime and had trouble sitting still to watch a show. Never saw any reason to grow up and abandon things that I like. My grandfather loved Popeye cartoons. My mother watched X-Men Evolution with me like it was a soap opera. My favorite auntie is retired, and I've seen her play on the floor with her grandkids as long as her pain-riddled body will let her, happy as a clam conversing with a toddler about fish and birds and colors. Only realized I was officially an adult when younger adults started knocking on my door late at night needing an adult to help with some problem. Story 2. Realizing that not every employer is going to appreciate hard work and great loyalty, and they lie about it. And they expect you to show that kind of loyalty when asking for just a little unpaid overtime. And if you set a boundary, then you get either gaslit or threatened. Everyone else puts in their share of extra time. No, they don't. Or, this really won't help you on your next performance review. Stories of people being abused by managers this way are everywhere. It's pervasive. This was a hard one for me to accept. I feel like I was just blindly putting in 300% every day for years, especially this last year in particular. And at my review, I basically was told I was just fine, even though I went above and beyond, accepting every extra project and mentoring others, etc. Throughout the year, they sure loved me though to keep piling on work because they trusted me so much. Huge pill to swallow. I ended up leaving because the resentment was too great for me to stay. I was so naive. I've had 5 months off work and just now starting to heal from that burnout. Starting a new job with less pay, and I plan on putting in a solid 25% of my best. I'll continue to inch up in how much I put in, depending on how worth it is. Never again am I going to put forth 100% off the bat and be rewarded with more work until I'm left with zero semblance of myself and extreme burnout. With zero thanks. Very true. I didn't learn that lesson until later in life. I worked for a small family business who loved us and appreciated us. Then I went to work for corporations, and the difference was night and day. It is better to do your job and not extra. Working for PepsiCo taught me that if you do extra work, you have a higher chance of getting a write-up. I worked at a place for 5 years. Me and the owner got super close. He taught me everything. I was lined up to take over the business when he retired. I took my Thanksgiving vacation, like I do every single year, to see my family who lives 2,000 miles away. The first day back, he met me in the parking lot and said we needed to talk. I thought it was about one of the many projects I had been missing while I was out. He fired me on the spot. Said I wasn't focused on the company anymore because I took my yearly Thanksgiving trip to see my parents. I laughed. It took a couple of days to realize what was happening. It doesn't matter how close you are to your boss. At the end of the day, you're nothing more than a number. Story 3. Finding out that crappy people can actually be successful and happy and never get their comeuppance. People used to say, one day your bullies will be stuck flipping burgers at McDonald's if they're lucky, and you'll be making more money and happier than them. In reality, bullies are more likely to succeed and have better life outcomes because they have higher levels of self-confidence and social skills. It's why they're bullies in the first place. This is true. My bully got a scholarship to Hong Kong, never knew what happened to him after that, and my petty hope is that he ran into trouble with the Chinese when they protested. 'Cause I'm petty. Funnily enough, I did know a bully who ended up working in a cafe, lost his virginity at 14 and destroyed his own life. Depends on the person. Just like that guy in England, Jimmy Savile, I'm not English so I don't have the full context, but he seemed like England's Bill Cosby in more ways than one and got fame and fortune out of it. All of the horrible stuff he had been doing for years didn't come out publicly until he was already dead, so he never faced the legal consequences of his actions and died rich and happy. I agree. I'm working in pest control in a rich area at the moment, specifically the North Shore of Chicago, Highland Park, Winnetka, etc., up by the Home Alone house. The vast majority of the people I deal with are generational wealth and pretty little housewives who were definitely mean girl bullies in school, and then married rich and get to live the lap of luxury while continuing to treat people like crap. By people, I mean people like me, who they see as beneath them. Makes me admire the French and their guillotines. Story 4. How little money $100 actually is will make you sad. How little money $1,000 is will just make you cry. My 15-year-old son worked all summer mowing, digging ditches, pressure washing, you name it. He was out there hitting the pavement every single day at 5 a.m. He has saved $2,000. He wanted to help pay for his first used car, and I told him we would match penny for a penny. And then some, because he worked so hard. On the first day of school, he came home from practice and mowed all his customers' yards in Alabama's heat and humidity until he couldn't see in the dark. He understands the value and presently feels like Richie Rich. The only thing he's treated himself with is taking our family out to Whataburger to celebrate his first paycheck, his request. We all got dressed up and made a pasteboard of his first check and had the very best time. I was just talking about finances with my wife. We were remembering years ago when we had about $5,000 in debt. At that time, that seemed like $1 million, and I thought we'd never pay it off. Now, we have hundreds of thousands of dollars of debt, including our mortgage, and I feel like we are doing really well at paying it down, and I'm not worried at all. When I grew up, I lived with my single father. At the height of his career, he made $28K. He took care of my sister and me with every fiber of his being. We lived in a decent neighborhood. Both had braces, played sports, and went camping. There was never a lot, but always enough. My husband and I make more than 5 times. If I knew that as a child, I would think that we would be rich as adults. We are blessed and do not have to worry if a water heater goes out, or my children's sports fees are due. We save as much as we can, but we have to watch every penny diligently. Eating out is a major treat. We stick strictly to our budget. Movies maybe twice a year, and take good care of our things so that they'll last. I went grocery shopping on Friday and sat in my car to have a good cry about $600 spent in 3 stores with me, price shipping, and buying generic brands. I would stop in traffic to pick up a $5 bill, thrilled with 100. The economy is so screwed. Back in the 90s, when I was in the 2nd grade, our teacher gave an economics lesson. She asked, "Who thinks $5 an hour is a lot of money?" Almost all the kids raised their hands. She popped out some newspapers and told us to find the cheapest housing that we could. A full-time minimum wage job could not afford a whole house in our city, just a room somewhere. Then she added utilities, groceries, gas, and an optional car payment. Of course, there was no money left. She told us that we should be aiming for $20, and by the time that we were adults, it would be more like $30 or $40. Seriously, in second grade, she dropped the truth bombs on us, and at that age, I could not imagine someone paying $20 an hour for anything, let alone paying me that much. She was dead on though, too conservative if anything. I'm in an especially expensive area getting paid about $1 a minute, and it's still not enough. Meanwhile, the federal minimum wage hasn't changed in ages, and people are still arguing about $15 an hour. It should have been $15 an hour 20 years ago. Story 5. That you have to figure out dinner. Every day, forever. The best part about being an adult is that nobody can tell you that you can't eat an entire rack of Oreos for dinner. And the worst part about being an adult is that nobody can tell you that you can't eat an entire rack of Oreos for dinner. So, I love hash brown casserole. Always have. It took me until 34 to realize I didn't have to wait until the holidays to make a big old dish of it. I could just always have one baked off and ready to demolish anytime I got too high, sad, or hungry. It was super empowering, but I gained several pounds as a result. I did the same thing with mac and cheese. My mom, God loves her, would never let me order mac and cheese while we were out because we could just have it at home. Well, she couldn't cook regular mac and cheese, so what she called mac and cheese was actually Kraft dinner, which is good, but not the same as homemade mac and cheese. Anyway, now I make mac and cheese for myself once a week. When I was in high school, I worked in a cafe and one of my coworkers, an adult with kids, was asking what he should do for his birthday. I said, on our birthdays, we get to choose anything we want for dinner. As soon as I said it, I was like, damn, I'm stupid. Adults can pick what they want for dinner literally every day for the rest of their lives. Story 6. When something's gone wrong and you look around for an adult to handle it and realize you are the responsible adult. I had a day recently where I drove my slowly collapsing body to a kidney specialist all by myself and handled it. I even stopped to pick up cat food on the way home. I had a moment in the car where I acknowledged this and was like, hell yeah! Small victories. As a senior engineer, I feel this. Crap, I broke it. Let me go find someone who knows how to fix it quickly. Looks around and realizes you are the one that is supposed to know how to fix it. And everyone comes to you. Years ago, I was at a PTA thing, and one woman was telling a story. I don't remember what the story was about, but I do remember her saying something like, and so we asked this mom who was there. I mean, we're all moms, but she was a real mom, you know? Ha! If you think that's bad, try being the oldest and most experienced at work, school, family, or any group. Not only are you supposed to be an adult, you also have to be the adult who knows everything and is the person everyone runs to for help. Do you want to say, help you? The hell can I help you? I can't even help myself. But you can't because somehow you ended up the matriarch. This just happened to me and an MD I work with. We had a PT who was suddenly not doing well, which was really anesthesia's purview, not ours. We were about to take her to the OR. Had not much to do with why she wasn't doing well, but she still had to go for another serious problem that she was having. The doctor is a brand new MD and looked at me and said, "She needs a doctor." I said, "You are the doctor." She said, "No, I mean a real doctor." I laughed. It just goes to show that even when you are the adultiest adult in the room, you don't always feel like it. Also, the PT ended up being fine. Story 7. When you realize just how expensive real life actually is, it gives you a new respect for your parents. If you had decent parents, that is. It actually doesn't give me new respect for my parents because they grew up in an economy that enabled their success and independence as a married couple and parents of 3. Meanwhile, the economy they passed on to us is dying on the vine, and we're all struggling. I feel like I can't relate to this because the COL was significantly cheaper before the arrogance of saying kids these days aren't working hard enough given the current conditions. I'd be able to have a much more prosperous life if I was given the opportunity to get into the real estate market early. It's extreme in Canada at the moment. I always kinda knew that we were poor or lower/middle class as kids. My parents still won't admit it to this day, but I knew. What hit super hard was coming to terms with my depression. Then looking back at the behaviors I saw in my family and realizing, oh, so no one was ever fine. I used to love ramen for dinner. Ramen and hot dogs were a dream night for me. No veggies, no weird textures, just good stuff. Now that I'm older, struggling to find money or motivation, I see ramen and hot dogs weren't just a quirky thing my mom liked to make for the hell of it. Though, thanks to nostalgia, it is a quirky thing I like to make for the hell of it. Story 8. Finding out that someone that you've looked up to and admired your entire life is actually a horrible person. Had this moment with a close friend last year, and my life will never be the same. You have to routinely think, hey, if I just met this person, would we be friends? If the answer is no, you have to seriously reevaluate your friendship. Painfully true. I looked up to my late uncle so much. He was a father to me when my own father wasn't, and he gave me great advice that helped me be the person I am today. Years after his death, my sister confided in me that he had been brutally molesting her for the entirety of his stay with us, which was years. As someone who has been managing musicians for almost 20 years, I used to get excited meeting musicians I looked up to. I would say personally 10% of the highly respected and esteemed artists are worth a crap at a human level. One of my favorite fake quotes, "The music business is a cruel and shallow money trench, a long plastic hallway where thieves and pimps run free, and good men die like dogs. There's also a negative side." The important thing is to consider why you looked up to that person. Most artists are crappy people and at some point in their life, but their personal life isn't why I'm a fan or why they inspired me. I'm a fan of their art, not their personal life. The way I see it now, everyone has some kind of skeleton in their closet waiting to be revealed. The context or circumstance matters to me though. People are complex creatures and can change greatly over the 5 to 10 decades that they're alive. Just look at Mike Tyson. Timberlake is the most recent example of someone's skeleton being revealed to the world. Personally, I'm not going to judge Timberlake for his actions as a young adult, who was thrust into a level of fame I'll never understand. 20 years later, yeah, he was a crappy boyfriend 20 years ago, however he's in his 40s, married with kids, and Beale isn't rushing to get a divorce. So he has to have changed and learned from his past behavior in the last 20 years. Don't get me wrong though, time does not minimize everything and context doesn't always matter. If you killed, molested, or have a strong history of repeatedly abusing people, you should be held responsible and should face the consequences. Story 9. Sometimes there's no justice. Mitch McConnell will get what he deserves. Sure buddy, he's been in Congress for almost 40 years, and he's been the most powerful senator for half that time. He's doing fine, and will continue to for the rest of his life. Even if he were to be tortured to death tomorrow, it wouldn't help the millions upon millions of people who have been negatively impacted by his policy choices. A family member drove drunk with her kids in the car and didn't even get an ankle bracelet. She was so upset her ex called the cops for endangering their shared children that she spat. It's a man's world. And as a woman and a mom, my stomach clenched and my blood boiled. When she does kill them driving drunk, I wonder if she'll even do time. But it is, a man's world. Petty excuse for being mad over a slap on the wrist. Will the people who created the opioid crisis ever see the inside of a prison cell? Of course not. Maybe they'll have to pay a fine that's just a fraction of what they earned committing their crimes, maybe. These people have destroyed tens of thousands of lives and created a problem that in some way affects every citizen in this country. But because they're so rich and powerful, we can't do jack to them. K-pop star Seungri, involved at the center of the Burning Sun incident, was found guilty of 9 different charges. This included the likes of gambling, illegal in Korea, sending thugs to threaten witnesses, prostitution, illegally filming women without their consent, and receiving 3 years of jail. He managed to reduce this to 1.5 years. He's now free and back to partying. Oh, and he got a fine that couldn't have meant anything to him. Story 10. Being a hard worker and good at your job doesn't necessarily mean that you will be rewarded for it. I'm learning this lately. I say yes to everything and get told how much they appreciate my flexibility. I say no to one thing because it makes me feel unsafe, and they lose their crap on me. 4 years worth of saying yes is all undone in one no, apparently. The problem is that you established that people can always use you as a fallback when they mess up or procrastinate on tasks. The best way to do it is to respond in an email. Email the person even if it was a verbal conversation that you do their request, but remind them that it is only a one-time occurrence and needs to be approved by your direct supervisor in the future due to the short notice and timeline. CC the person's boss and your boss. If they do it enough times, then that's when you stonewall them, after you documented it enough to show a pattern of their misuse of you as a resource. This hinges on your working relationship with your direct manager. If you are on a good team, your boss will bat for you if they know how often X person outside of your group is pulling you away from your workout for the sake of their convenience. I had the same thing happen at work. When you agree to be a team player but start asking questions why with their supervisors and managers notified, people will stop making those types of requests quickly. The number of times I got extra duties in my last job was ridiculous. However, since I was working in tech support, in-house inbound call center, I got reasonable pay and could only ever do one of my many jobs per day, some of which were even quite chill and thus fun. But my ambition is to make one of these specialist teams, or even better, second-level support, half more pay and double pay respectively. Go down the drain, while other people got promised to specialists and second level before their respective first or second year ended. What did I get when my second year ended? Sacked. Working hard is for idiots. I must know. I am one. This was forced to let go of my top performer recently due to basically their pay. Sucks to see someone put so much time and effort into their job and I can't save them. Layoffs are the worst. My advice as someone who used to put work before their family/life in order to get ahead, do your job enough to qualify for raises/promos if you're into that, but don't let your job run your life. You could be replaced at any moment, no matter how well of a job you did. In the US at least. Story 11. That some friends were never really your friends. I think this is an odd sort of trap. It's very easy to end up surrounded by comfortable conformity. A bunch of people who hang out with you, because it's not too bothersome, and they might as well. But if you stop conforming, they'll be gone, because it was just convenience, not actual friendship. There are plenty of people who go through life never realizing the difference because they never needed to know the difference. Their every interaction was governed by a comfort, maybe even including their romantic interests. Two people going through life just sort of intersecting out of convenience. But then they're gone again, when things change, and it's no longer convenient. You've not really lost them as much as they were never really there in the first place. That's not negativity. There is no eternal unconditional friendship. When you think about it, how much do you really know about people you lived with since forever? When I did, I found that I knew very little about even my own family. I knew so little even about my grandparents who lived just a floor above us, big house that they owned. He was in World War II, but even when I was alive, I knew very little about what he was doing all day. Working, craftsman, meister. Marriages break apart all the time, with one side surprised, not even seeing it coming. Even when you talk a lot, there's always a routine. Most thoughts are your own. The more everybody's life changes, the more breaking points there will appear. It's not about some abstract inner self. Oh, so while matching somebody else, there is no such thing. Because even the self heavily depends on one's context and surroundings. Your brain rewires itself a little bit every day, night. How much depends on how much it needs to adapt to new things in your environment. You are not the person you were 20 years ago. Depending on how much you experience and move around, not even close. It seems a bit easier to connect with people you once knew. I see a lot of people reaching out after 50, depending on how good the memories are. There's also lots of people who couldn't care less and dropped everything they once were and knew. Enjoy friendships, but don't be too disappointed when it stops. And some friends are just friends because you are in a similar situation and not because you are bosom buddies. I had someone I thought was a good friend. It turned out that she just wanted her kid to be friends with my kid, and I was the gateway, I guess. Once they were grown, she didn't actively want to be friends anymore. Friendly if we ran across one another, but nothing more. It didn't feel good. Some people are in your life forever. Some are just for a season. Story 12. I thought I'd grow up, move out, find my footing in the grown-up world, and basically switch into cruise mode. Now I'm in my 40s and crap is confusing as hell. Think back to when you were little. Didn't your parents and their friends all seem really grown up and mature? Dinner parties, discussing important things with facts and logic, not thinking farts are funny, etc. They were probably younger than you are now, and you're still laughing at South Park and replying "your mom" to people. I remember that guy on Reddit who answered a post saying, "I'm an adult, but I don't know what is going on. Am I stupid?" His answer was something along the lines of, "I'm a lawyer of some sort. Every day I talk to common folks and explain to them what is going on concerning this exact field of problems that I know about. And every day I have that moment where I think, what the hell is going on? I don't know. I don't understand myself. Who knows?" And then I take this idea, put it back in the box it came from, and on the shelf it was on before. Until the next day where this thought will come back, and again, and again. I found that answer, both poetic and inspiring. Nobody knows what's going on, and it's reassuring. Anything in particular that's especially confusing I should be aware of? For context, I'm currently 26 and fortunate enough to make a six-figure salary, and on track to retire around the late 50s/early 60s, as long as nothing derails right now. All my friends tell me I should be more independent, but living with my parents and saving as much as I can sounds like the more reasonable route. I have certain impulses to move out, etc., but those confusing moments you mentioned are preventing me from doing so. I'm a creature of habit and pretty comfortable right now, so I don't want to make any rash decisions that completely shake me short or long term. And when you think you've got it, something happens to shake it all up again. I had a job that I loved, a company that was like family to me. Then COVID happened, my parents died shortly after each other, and suddenly I found myself in a job that didn't fit me anymore, and a company that didn't sit right with me. 13 great years. It took me 2 more to decide to leave. I took a sabbatical and built guitars for 6 months, and now I'm starting a new job, hoping I did the right thing. The one thing I did learn was to listen to my feelings. As long as I can listen to those and be with myself in balance, it'll be alright. Story 13. When I was a kid, I thought adults had everything figured out and couldn't wait to grow up so that I could be like them. Ha! Ha ha ha! To be honest, I actually like being an adult more than being a kid. I have way more control over my life than I ever did. Plus, I was the responsible kid in my family, so my single mom ended up relying on me more and more as I got older. My childhood sucked too. I thought growing up would be my way out of misery. My parents really failed at being parents in many ways. When I was a kid, it made me so angry that they didn't know how to be normal. My father was incredibly selfish and my mother didn't have level-headed reactions to things. I thought there was something wrong with just them, and I dreamt of growing up and embodying all the things I saw in other adults that my parents lacked. Then I grew up and I realized many adults are a hot mess just like my parents. We're all just trying to figure crap out. As an adult, I definitely have more control over my environment, which I'm so grateful for. It's worse when you find out at a very young age. My dad was a paragon of thoughtfulness, intelligence, and wit. I have no idea why he married Mom, because she was off her rocker. Examples: she told me off for rubbing talcum powder on my face because it would turn me Chinese. It probably saved me from cancer, but that wasn't why I was told not to. And we weren't allowed to go into the cinema to see Gremlins because you'll bring them home with you. When I was 13 years old, I went grocery shopping with my mom. I wanted to test my math skills, so I kept a tally of the cost. I told her I would round up or down to the nearest 5 pence. You can use dollars and cents if that helps. This was back in the 80s anyway, and saying how much the running total was if she asked. She had 75 pounds with her. At the end, I said it was about 70.20 pounds. I was 7 pence short. That was it. Just a few copper coins from being 100% accurate. But I said it was just a rough figure. Mom looked at me like it was witchcraft. For me, this was basic addition, keeping track of how much I'd rang up that ended in a 9 and rounding down every so often as a result, and keeping track of the tally. She wouldn't have been able to do it, so she would never know how I had done it. And she would never know that was a boring but easy thing for a teenage brain. She didn't know her arse from her elbow, which would result in her refusing to get medical assistance for what was clearly diabetes symptoms, and making excuses for heavy smoking. She died when she was 58, and I'm just 5 years shy of that age now, but I'm healthier than I ever remember her being, and I could see other adults just like her. Finding out there's no Father Christmas at the age of 6 is one thing. Finding out when you're a child that so many adults don't have a clue what to do in life is quite another. This can also be really difficult for high-intelligence teenagers. Allow some leeway in how we define intelligence and treat this as a thought experiment, but there are very, very intelligent teenagers, just low life experience, who are surrounded by many average or low intelligence adults. These elite teenagers encounter many average adults, often teachers, simply due to proximity. See the choices they make and know they are incorrect or mistaken or have poor critical thinking, but they have to respect them due to imposed culture regarding age. The teenager may figure they just misunderstand the situation and the adult knows better, but then the teenager gets older and becomes an adult themselves and realizes that a good portion of their authority figures they had in their life really were low intelligence and just plain wrong in many of their choices. It can be quite difficult to navigate because while you are intellectually superior, you just don't have the resume or accomplishments to demonstrate it yet. When I was a teenager with my insecurities, self-esteem issues, self-hatred, and depression at their peaks, I actually believed that turning 18 was a magical event of sorts in which I would toughen up and become immune to bullying and to the waterfalls of negative feelings assaulting my head. I'm 25 now, and I am in a far better place, but it took years of effort, therapy, independence from my parents, and cutting out a crappy friendship to get there. It didn't automatically come when I became a legal adult. Thanks for watching until the end. If you have a story similar to these that you want to share with us, please leave it in the comments below. If you enjoyed this video, please leave us a like and subscribe. For more videos like this one right now, please stop by our channel. Thanks again, and see you next time.